folks, welcome back to another video. I hope you're doing really well. Cue this one, starting to laugh at the fact that I have a YouTube intro because normally it's adorable. I can't get through it without her laughing. This is kind of not the follow-up from the last video, but we are on our way to, this is Natalie, for anyone who's new.
In 3 kilometers, use the second from the right lane.
We are on our way. We're about 13 minutes away from this place. Well, it's not really a place, but it's called SimiQuest. So it's about 2 hours from Ottawa. It's one of those horse simulators. I don't even remember how. I think you found it, didn't you?
Yeah.
So Natalie had seen it on Instagram and was like, this is something we should do together. And we've been wanting to do it for a while, but finances and timing just didn't allow. And to be honest, right now, finances don't really allow, but we had booked the appointment, so it's like, we're gonna do it. Pricing is really reasonable, I think. We're doing a 2-hour appointment for 2 people, and it's like $125 each with tax. So I think that's pretty good.
Which is like a normal lesson in itself.
Yeah.
Like a higher end coach.
Yeah, and basically what we're doing is, well, the reason is we both wanted to try out the simulator, but also you're kind of getting back into riding after a break. I think the idea is like it'll give you a really good, because you get really good stats out of it. Yeah. I guess, and it's kind of like a riding lesson. Like there's an instructor. It gives you. Oh my gosh!
It didn't talk the whole time.
I know, and that's why I was like, I'll wait until we're closer. Anyways, you get some stats, and there's an instructor. You can bring your own. Oh my God. You can bring your own saddle. So that's what I did. I brought my saddle.
In 600 meters, merge onto Route 640S.
Anyways, basically,
Continue on Ottawa 640S for 7 kilometers.
Alrighty. We're each going to be having like an hour, and I think it's a bit like an assessment, and you get some ideas on maybe you lean, like I know for a fact that I lean a little bit too much to the right. So I'll be really interested to see how that translates on the simulator, and maybe in a few months, because you're actually the one who had this idea, that we'll do a part 2 and see how we've been able to implement what we learned from this assessment into our actual riding, which I think is a really cool idea. Look at you coming up with the video ideas.
Welcome to my channel.
This is the type of thing that I've wanted to do for a long time because I see it's tracking your face instead of mine. That's annoying.
Oops.
I've seen these like on Instagram for like ages, and I didn't think that there was any in Canada, or definitely not within our area. And when Natalie saw it on Instagram last year and we plugged it into the map, we were like, shit, it's like 2 hours away. I haven't ridden in about 3 weeks, and I'm probably not going to ride for like
another in a year plus.
Oh my God, that's bullshit. It's been a matter of months.
Like consistently?
Yeah, I suppose.
Like I don't think I've actually had, well, I haven't had a lesson in forever, but I haven't
In 3
had,
kilometers, take exit 28 for Quebec.
no, I haven't had a lesson since high school.
Which for you is not as long ago as it is for me. My 10-year reunion is this year.
It's been a while, but also the last time I rode and like actually had a good ride was probably last winter.
You're kind of getting Mickey back into work.
Exactly.
And starting to...
Mickey hasn't necessarily been in like an actual like walk, trot, canter program for a year and a half.
Yeah.
So
it'll give you a really good baseline of like where you're starting, and
I'll probably be out of breath.
me too, to be honest. I went from riding 2 horses 4 to 5 days a week to nothing.
It takes a toll on you.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how it feels compared to an actual horse. Like, I'm just really excited. Oh, camera's about to die, so that's a sign to end the intro. Hope that you enjoy. We have more adventures that we're going on this year, which is quite exciting. So anyways, we are almost there. I said I was going to end it before my camera died, and then my camera died before I could shut up.
Take the Quebec 335 Sun exit.
So,
Use the right lane to take
anyways,
Quebec.
hope that you enjoy and find this interesting, and hopefully we will be back in a couple of months, or probably a few months, probably realistically end of summer, with
Use the right lane to take the Quebec 335 Sun.
the part 2. So I'm going to do my best to voice over how the whole experience went. So when I first got on, I must admit that it felt very, very weird. When we started out, she was explaining how the simulator worked, all the sensors, how the screen showed my balance, and she told me not to immediately try to fix an imbalance if I saw one, because that doesn't really help us address the root cause. I rode the horse in dressage mode, which you can see here allows you to pick the horse up into a nice connection and do all sorts of cool things like transitions within the gaits, lead changes, etc. And the screen showed the weight in my hands, which is the stuff at the top, the weight in my seat bones, which is on the right, and the pressure in each leg, which is on the left. My balance skewed towards the right, which means that my left side is weaker. She noted that my balance is more centered in the trot versus the walk and canter, which makes sense given how much bareback and sit trot work I did with Eve over the winter. And it's also an issue with my hips, which you see more, or which you will see more in the walk and canter. With time, this here is me just kind of getting used to the motion of the horse, and you can see how much my upper body is moving. I'm not absorbing the movement properly through my hips. This was my first time just kind of getting a feel for how the horse simulator felt, and I must admit the first 15-20 minutes was very weird, but then you just kind of get used to it, I guess. So then this is us doing a little baseline assessment where you kind of ride through all of the gaits for a certain period of time. I think it's 30 seconds at each gate, just to get some stats that kind of help guide you through the session. And then after that, you kind of sit and go through what the stats kind of mean. The biggest takeaway for this session was that I need to work on mobility in my hips and not leaning too far forward, which will help me absorb the movement of the horse better, especially on a big bouncy horse like Merlin, who's got such a huge stride. And I come to realize that I also clench with my glutes too much, which I don't know, I guess I think that will help me sit into the saddle more, but when in reality it does the opposite. And the weight leaning to the right can have an impact over fences too, and as it puts my weight to the right over the fence, encouraging the horse to land on that lead, etc. So as you can see here, we put a Franklin ball under each seat bone, which really helped to open up my hip flexors and make me focus on where my weight and seat bones were. I raised my arms up in front of me and took my feet out of the stirrups, and it was harder than you would think to stay balanced on the Franklin balls. I was really having to resist the urge to squeeze with my legs without stirrups, and she wanted my leg kind of completely still while keeping my core engaged, and I discovered that I find isolating the movement of different parts of my body really hard when riding, so that's something to work on when I start riding again. And we reaffirmed something that my current coach taught me, which is that you should picture your pubic bone coming upwards and your shoulder blades going together so that you aren't hollowed in the back. Thinking belly button in and shoulder blades together. The image of opening your shoulders isn't a great image because it hollows the back. When we removed the Franklin balls, we started working on the same thing that I had done with them, aiming to get that same feeling with me sitting deeper in the saddle. My right hip was more forward, so I was given the image of sending energy towards my left knee, and it made a huge difference. We did some stretching on top of the horse and came to the conclusion that my right hip is a lot tighter and rigid than my left. So after isolating, the kind of different areas to work on, we tried putting it all together, fine-tuning little things here and there, and I got so into the mechanics of it all that I'm definitely going to be doing more research into rider biomechanics because I find it so interesting. And yeah, it was just such an incredible experience. There were a lot of visual things that aren't necessarily physically tangible things that you do, but that really helped me visualize where I should be sending energy. So I didn't actually end up trying out the jumping because I got so into the biomechanics of it all, but Nathalie did try out the jumping, so I asked her if it was okay if I put some of the footage in, and it's really cool to see how the horse's head works in dressage mode versus jumping mode. you can see that the head is behaving more freely, much like a horse's head would when they're actually jumping. It's reaching out over the fences. There's an aspect in the cross-country part where there's a drop, and you can see the horse's head go down over the fence like it would as though it was going over an actual drop. And Nathalie said that she could feel the kind of undulations in the ground in the cross-country mode versus the stadium jumping mode. And I'm really, really excited to go back next time and to try out the jumping. I went first, Nathalie went second. We used my saddle. I personally had high expectations because I've seen so much like on social media and online about what the capabilities of these like simulators are. I think the hour was like perfect. We each kind of worked on different things. So I originally wanted to do like a flat work assessment, which is what the first session typically tends to be, and then try some jumping. I ended up getting so into the details of it all and like looking at, because you have live feed of your seat, your balance,
all the sensors.
So there's so many sensors that you have a visual representation of how your balance is, the weight in your reins. I got so into that, and we actually started, because I am very unbalanced to the right, and we actually got more into discussing and working on that kind of stuff. That she asked me if I wanted to continue doing that, and I made the decision not to try the jumping because I was just getting so ADHD hyper focused on like the data.
I did more of the assessment, but I kind of ultimately decided like I'm not really riding right now. I'm kind of just like messing around and getting started and stuff again. So I figured it would be more beneficial to me to kind of build my confidence on kind of that I can actually handle certain things and certain gaits and whatever. So I did end up doing the jumping. Then I did the jumping, and then there's a cross-country mode that I tried, both of which I definitely had anxiety about, which is interesting.
It's so interesting.
Because usually I felt my anxiety was coming from the fact that I was on a horse that could do anything at any moment. But then I felt myself as I was getting to the jump, and there were some that I definitely like almost flew forward because I was so focused on like the nerves that I wasn't really thinking of the fact like this horse is not going anywhere.
Yeah.
It's going to be the same for the most part feeling every jump. It was a weird experience, but definitely eye-opening, and I feel like next time we go, I'll be able to just kind of build on the confidence of like the horse is not going anywhere, so I should be okay. Because
that's something that like not only can you get the feedback from the sensors and all the different like stats and visual representations of your balance and stuff, but it's also like a really safe way to work on, and I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah.
But it's a really safe way to work on confidence with certain things like jumping. There's dressage mode and jumping mode, so I did mostly dressage mode, and you can feel the difference between like the collected walk, medium walk, extended walk.
Yeah.
The extended canter, it was like, oh my god.
Yeah, and even she put it in, she had it in the dressage mode, and then she changed it over to just like a free mode of just like a horse, and I felt the difference with that for sure. And even like the way the horse simply does a little collected walk, I felt like the horse was more heavy and down than the dressage horse, who was very like
up and collected.
Yes, you had more power from behind, but it just felt very interesting to see that the simulator could change so much. It honestly, this is such a weird thing. This is just like my own thought right now. I kind of like imagine that as a career.
I know.
Like I'm kind of like, how much is a horse?
But it's like so interesting, and
like it would pay off.
Yeah, she was an incredible teacher, and she had really, really good insights into how like the biomechanics of it all.
Yeah.
Which you can't really focus on as much when you're riding an actual horse, because like I know I ride a lot of young horses and thoroughbreds. Well, a lot. I ride a young horse and a thoroughbred. I tend to find it hard sometimes to focus on my riding and the biomechanics of it consistently, because horses are by nature unpredictable.
And one thing is that when you're riding and like in a lesson or something and someone tells you something, so for me, it'll be like the push your shoulder blades together, put your shoulders back. When you're actually riding, you try to do it, blah, 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 it doesn't work. So then you stop and someone comes over and puts their hand and they're like, push in here.
Yeah.
Well, on the simulator, you can continue trotting or cantering.
Yeah.
And as soon as she put her hand on my back to say push here, like immediate difference.
Yeah.
And it was nice to feel that, well, in the motion and not just at a halt. That in itself was a very cool experience.
I knew it would be valuable, but I definitely want to come back within the next couple of months. Probably once we get to a point where we're both riding decently consistently. I'm glad that we did this because when I do get back in the saddle, I'm going to have a lot of things to work on and be aware of, and it gives me a good baseline to start back. You can see what the jump mode is like.
And some of it was really scary, I'm not gonna lie. Like some of it you really feel the jump. And as someone who has not jumped a jump in 4 years, 5 years, that felt very weird. You can get left behind, you can fall forward, and for some of it, like even on the cross country mode, I did a ditch, and that in itself was very like you have to sit into it or you're going to like not fall off, but you're gonna fall off.
So you can feel the hills and stuff in the cross country.
So
like the
even,
technology of it is just so,
and
it's incredible.
that's the crazy part, because it wasn't like just going over a jump so that the horse knows when to go up. It was like on the actual track and the course I was on, it's like riding over an uneven spot in an arena.
Yeah.
It knew and it did that.
So
it was
cool.
very interesting, and trying to steer it through that. I think next time it'll be interesting to watch Kaitlyn do that, because steering is harder than you think, especially because you have to use a very direct rein.
I found it really interesting because she had me like do a downward transition, and I like had a hard time getting it to do the downward transition because I don't know if I wasn't using enough rein or whatever, but like most of the time, because for me we were working on mostly my hips. It was just on like free mode where she was controlling what the gait was, but the times where I was using my leg, like it's hard. Highly recommend if you're in Ottawa, Montreal, if you're within a few hours drive of Laval, check it out. Like the pricing is so affordable. We did a session for 2 people for 2 hours, and it ended up coming out to like 126 each, which if you think about how much you'll pay for a riding lesson or whatever, it's like it's about the same.
The experience was very cool.
Yeah, the experience was incredible, and I find I got so much, like when I get home tonight, I'm going to be sitting down either with my phone and my notes app or an actual piece of paper and a pen and writing down everything that she said and that I can remember so that I have it in my head when I start riding again. Yeah, that is our little debrief. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Like I said in the last video, Nathalie is going to start being in videos more often soon for a certain reason that will come to light in the next couple of months. Very exciting. Don't forget to check out my other videos, and if you want to see more, hit the subscribe button, comment down below, and hit the like button because it really does help me out. Yeah, I will see you next time. Bye.